So we are here today with one of our longer-standing clients with Divine Digital, Dave Dagostino, who created the app Apperone. How you doing, Dave?
Doing good. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Couldn't be better.
Couldn't be better, Dave.
Dave, tell us about Apperone. Give us sort of the nickel tour as to what Apperone is.
Sure. So Apperone is a travel app that I came up with. I am a 9-year band dad, so taken multiple high school bands on trips over the last decade, which makes me feel really old to say that actually, but over the last decade. So controlled chaos at best. Really could be a lot worse most times. So anyway, was on those trips enough times that I finally figured out there's got to be a better way to do this. So came up with an idea for an app that controls itineraries and tracks students and check kids on and off buses and photo sharing and a whole bunch of other good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, you know, what's super interesting about your app also is the timing with which you kind of entered the market. So you developed your app right in time for the spring of 2020.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Timing is everything, right?
What happened in the spring of 2020? Just in case somebody's been.
I don't remember. Wait, let me find my mask. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I'm on a trip in November of 2019 for a Thanksgiving Day parade up in Philadelphia, and that's when I came up with the initial idea for my app, and came back, found Divine Digital, found you guys, and we got to work and gave you my idea. And man, you know, so we started in probably beginning of December. By the beginning of March, right? We had 4 months. We had a nice working product, and 2 weeks later, everybody went in a shell for a year and a half. Or
And
whatever.
Dave, I actually remember my daughter calling me from that band trip to Indiana. Hey, we're coming home. What do you mean you're coming home? We just paid how much money to get you up there? This is like a huge event. You're coming home the same day you guys arrive. And then school was just done. The whole world shut down. So like just quickly, you said, hey, I've been a band dad for 9 years. Anybody that's not in that and understands like the level of chaos and complexity that your app takes and goes like this with it.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about, so you had your idea, you came to us, and that is like the biggest understatement of the century though, because that's when all the work actually started of how are we doing this? Who does what in the band process? Who can we give permission to? How are we controlling kids? How are we getting them to the next thing? Give us a little bit about what that experience like, man, was that like initial push to, hey, I see the need. It's so clear. And I would agree with you because I've been there too. Incredibly like that pure chaos. And the old saying like herding cats. That's nothing compared to herding 115 teenagers with $5,000 instruments all on a bus. So give us a little more about that like initial process, man, where we were kind of going in and figuring out the details of like how are you going to do all this.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it was, it's really complicated, right? Because you got to look at, right, you want your chaperones to be able to control their kids, and you want kids to be able to do certain things, but you don't want them to be able to do other things. But at the same time, you got the administrator who has to see everything, and then you got parents at home who want to follow along, but you don't want to let them in too much because they'll be blowing up the band director's phone when he's on the trip about their kid. But you want to have something like that too, right? So it was definitely a journey when we first sat down together and started putting all these things together. And quite honestly, I mean, we're in it now.
Almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And we still have that conversation at times, right? Like, oh wait, now if we do this, we got to make sure that it's not this, right? So it's been really complicated, and you guys obviously have been great. Being able to sit down, think through it logically, come up with an idea, maybe work on it a little bit, and we're like, well, maybe that won't work, and pivot. But yeah, it's definitely been an iteration after iteration kind of thing to get it all together.
What when you say you found Divine Digital, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what were you looking at other development agencies? Did you kind of, how did you find us?
So, squirrels and nuts, right? So I actually have a friend who I used to have a drone company with, doing drone mapping. As you know, I'm a land surveyor in my day job. I'm not a full-time band dad or app seller guy. But, so anyway, I had a drone company, and my partner, Andrew, I kind of went to him and said, hey man, I got this idea for an app. I'm kind of trying to figure out who the developer is. He's like, hey, I know a guy. And I was like, oh, cool. And really, I came to you guys, and we just sat down and off we went, man. So I mean, it was really just good. I consider it very good luck, man, to be able to find y'all, first try, because I know, a lot of people have bad experiences with app developers, and they don't really get what they want, and so I really consider myself really lucky, that I found you guys off the bat. So
just to kind of springboard off that, well, we kind of lucky as well, Dave. It's been awesome working with you, man. It truly, and especially to build this thing, see it grow, get it out there in the world. And you didn't have an easy path, right? COVID hit in the middle of all this. If I could ask, now that you've kind of, again, we've been together for years now, if you could say a couple words to that, that young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Dave who had never launched an app or started a software project, what are some things that, now that you're on this side of it, you didn't know or wouldn't even have guessed, prior to starting this process of building an app, that you would have said, hey, younger Dave, this is what you need to pay attention to?
I guess it would probably be, even though I kind of, I knew there would be issues, right? There'd be things you have to fix, things wouldn't go the way you wanted, but first would probably be even more patient than you think you have to be, because it's a process, Like you said, we got a product out there. We got some feedback, take that feedback, do some tweaks, it's still out there, and it's been that, I don't know, maybe you come in, you're like, oh, I'm just going to build this app and it's going to be great, and I'm going to put it out there and everyone's going to buy it and they're going to love it. And I mean, it just doesn't work that way, right? It's just, it's a process, and so I would probably be even more patient than I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I've had a couple businesses in my life, so it's not easy, right? And nothing goes the way you plan to go. There's always pivots, there's always changes as you have to go. So that would probably be the most important thing, is just to be patient and know that it's a process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you could, if we do this, everything stays the same, but it's not us, and you hire maybe a couple guys from Fiverr, or maybe you got a couple cousins that can write code and develop things. Do you think that would have been actually possible?
No. No.
No. Now, let me ask this: why? Because I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Well, I guess the biggest thing is you don't know what you don't know, right? So
that's very good.
And your cousin knows a little bit about this, but with you guys, I mean, you see problems before they become problems, number one, because this is what you do, right? If you got your cousin out there who, codes, a little game or whatever he's doing,
sure.
He doesn't understand, not only the development side, the marketing side, just putting it all together in a package like that, like I said, I'm a land surveyor in my day job, right? So yeah, your uncle has a metal detector and a shovel. Good luck. I'm sure you can find your property. It won't be a problem.
Right, does not make him a land surveyor. Yeah, so when eventually they do hit that buried gas line, you're really going to wish you had called the guy that does it every day.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So, but that's probably the most important thing, right? Is to have a team of people that work together, and having you and Jordan and everybody that works, and Alex, everybody that works together like that. It makes it's not, again, you hire professionals or you can hack it on your own.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Coming into this with not necessarily a ton of tech experience. Not that you were a dummy, right? But you're not, like you said, that this is not necessarily your expertise. How did you feel about the way Divine Digital has sort of held your hand through the process? How has communication been? How have you, do you feel, tell us a little bit about the communication process.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's been, I know enough tech to be dangerous. I understand what a database is, right? I have my little Microsoft Access database, so I love to talk to Jordan about how to make his database work, and he looks at me like, yeah, that's not the way it works. But so, I mean, like I said, I mean, having you guys tell me, like, I can come in there and say, well, it should be easy, right? You just do this, this, and this. And you're like, well, yes, but there's other parts to it, right? So, having that communication and that feedback to where, and you guys are always great too, right? Because we come and we have our meeting, Joe, and we sit there and we talk and we say, I want to do this, I want to do that. You're like, okay, you take it all down, and then we get back together a couple days later and we're like, okay, so here's what it actually looks like.
Yeah.
So, and that's important, right? Again, the expectations of, it seems very easy, right? It's not easy.
If I could sum up most of my conversations, it would probably be reflected in what you just said. It seems easy. It seems like you could cobble together a couple guys, hey, well, this guy was in the IT department of this company or something like that. If you don't know what you're doing, and you go into this thinking, hey, this is simple, easy. I've seen somebody do it on YouTube in 5 minutes. I've watched the videos how to build your own app. I can do this. Not the same. Not the same.
I mean, even the most simple things, right? I mean, it seems simple, but it's not simple. And then, like with Apperone, for example, I mean, it's a complicated thing. I'm geo-tracking 1,000 people at a time, making sure everybody's within a geo-fence somewhere. I mean, your uncle isn't going to code that. I mean, it's not, and so being able to manage and keep thousands of people into separate little databases so they don't cross over into each other's database, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's really complicated, and I mean, I'm a firm believer you got to hire professionals to do professional work, because if not, you're just wasting your time, effort, money, and you're just going to get super frustrated, and then you're going to quit. And you probably did have a really good idea, but it's never going to see the light of day.
Amen to that. One thing that's always true, and no matter what industry you're in, it's always more cost effective to do it right the first time. You mentioned that, man. A lot of folks have that sort of bad experience, and we get those phone calls, right? That's 2 or 3 phone calls a week of somebody whose business is on the edge. Like, hey, we paid for X, Y, and Z. It's going to be double the price to get it completed. Or, hey, it was supposed to be done in 6 months. We're now on year 2. $50K over budget, and I still don't have anything, that works. So you mentioned something I want to ask a little bit more about. There's the coding, right? The physically building what we're building. Mm-hmm. But your application's a little more complex. It's very social, right? It's so many moving pieces. How much of this process do you think was, for work, like from a workload perspective? How much of it was figuring out what should be built, as opposed to the time actually building things? Because I think that's something most folks are going to be surprised about. So to clarify that, if we were to do it like a percentage and a split, how much of the time did we spend working together, communicating, figure things out for what we ought to do, and then opposed to how much time we actually spent physically coding something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, I mean, my app's pretty complex, and it took a lot of coding and stuff, but I mean, we spent a ton of time. I mean, Joe, we talk, weekly, if not several times a week, and it's communication of what do we want, and how does it work, and what do we got to do, and what's the next step, and so yeah, just working it out in your mind and on a piece of paper to make it make sense so that it can be coded, right? Because coding is logic, so you have to have a logical approach to what you're trying to do, and that communication back and forth with you guys to figure out, hey, I want to do this. Okay, well, if you want to do that, we got to make sure we do this, this, and this, right? So we spend a ton of time, just figuring out what we got to code, and then having you guys actually build it.
I think what's also super interesting, Dave, about how you've approached things with Apperone is when you created this, you came to Divine Digital with your idea and how you saw it taking place. Well, fast forward a couple of years and we're on the market, and we're finding that the market sees it a slightly different way, right? And they're looking for slightly different. They're looking for that concept, but they're looking for maybe a different way to onboard, maybe a different way. And so there is that we often refer to the MVP, right? The minimally viable product. What can we go to market with to start actually testing? And that's really what has happened with Apperone. And now, we're about to, we're about to enter version 2 here, which should be, should be it, right? We've heard the people, we've tested it, we've run it in multiple different scenarios, and now it's a case of, all right, we've listened to all that feedback, and now we're implementing that. And so, just sort of piggybacking on what you were saying earlier about patience. It's patience, but it's also knowing that an app is a living, breathing entity, right? It's not something that you build and then walk away from. It's something that you build and keep building. And so, if someone's looking to just throw up an app and then move on to the next thing, I would probably say maybe don't.
Yeah. And even just maintaining the app, just maintaining Apperone. I mean, that's, there's a commitment there, I mean, you guys run the testing, you guys are constantly testing the app, making sure everything works, making sure all the libraries are up to date, and, all the database libraries and all the things that on the back end that you guys do, to make sure everything is the newest thing. So you don't have that glitch, right, where something's out of date and it doesn't work, which happens, but you guys have been great with that, as far as, and it is a living thing. And I'm sure when we put version 2 out there, we're going to have people coming back and saying, hey man, this is awesome, but and then, I will say one other thing about, if we're talking to people who are going to develop an app or develop anything, and this is something I learned, I had a little foray into tech with a family member going back over a decade, which was a great experience. Learned a lot, but the failure on his part was the shiny object syndrome, right? So, and I've kind of, you guys have reined me back in a little bit here and there on that too, because it's like, oh, you got a great idea, right? Oh, this is great, but we could add this. But oh wait, we could do that. Oh wait, let's add that. And it's like, that is a never-ending death cycle, man, where you're just going to go round and round and round and round, and you're never going to get a product that is good for your people. It's just, there's always better things. There's always things you can add, but, in working with you guys, and we've worked together, it's very important. Just get a product and get it working, and then get it out there and let it do its thing. And then, if in a perfect world you're making money, people are paying you to use the app, at that point you start, stockpiling those shiny objects and saying, oh, I'd love to add this, or I'd love to add this, right? And then you're making money. So okay, well, we'll take this journey down version 2.0, right? It's kind of what we did, right? There were some features that we're adding in that weren't initially there, but were necessary, that came up along the way of version 1.0, right? So that would be probably be my, going back to what Dave asked, if I could tell my younger self, or myself back in 2019, is beware of the shiny objects.
All right. Well, Dave, when we start up the app entrepreneur program, we're gonna start farming you out as a mentor, because, man, some of the stuff you're saying is just golden, and that sort of like continuous loop of innovation, where you're innovating yourself out of a product. You don't even we don't even know what it was originally for anymore, because we've added this and that. And I think this is kind of interesting. I think we're probably one of the rare companies that won't just say, we will build exactly what you want. Whatever you want, we're just going to build it. That is counterintuitive. You would think that that's exactly what somebody would want. Like, hey, do what I'm telling you to do. I think that separates us, man, because we are one of the few agencies that will say, hey, hold on a second. That's going to be a large chunk of money, which we're a company. We're here to make money. We would benefit from. But it's not going to do what you want it to do. It may very well clash with some other efforts. So I'm sure there was some times, and I'm struggling to recall anything in particular, where you specifically brought us something and say, hey, I want to do this, this, and this. And again, I think we're one of the rare companies that will sort of pour a little water on that and say, hold on. Our overall goal is to actually see you succeed and have money generated and have a version 2.0. So if we go all out and build all the bells and whistles without thinking about what we're getting into, yeah, that's problematic, man. You may have an app that costs 4 times as much as it's needed to be. And the way we look at that as a company is that is just siphoning off capital that client could use for an actual update that would make money for marketing resources or efforts. So do you have anything specific where, again, this is a tough question, but that you brought us something for Apperone and we kind of said, hey, Dave, hold on, pump the brakes a little bit. Maybe we don't want to do that quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things was payment gateways, right? We started off as like,
yeah, that's
payment
right.
gateway, right? We got to have this payment gateway.
Yeah.
We got to build it in there. We got to build it in and spend it. But you guys are like, well, hold on. Like we have some external options for that where you can save that money, do more important things to make your app successful. And then, at some point we will build a payment gateway into the app. I mean, it's just a matter of time, right? But it didn't make sense then, right? It just wasn't necessary. But it was something that we could get around a lot cheaper. And yeah, I mean, to what you just said, I mean, that is what makes you guys, I think, different than everyone else, right? You're here. You guys look at it, I get the sense working with you guys, success for you guys is for someone to have a successful app. It's not to make money. Listen, we're all here to make money, right?
Yeah.
But, working with you guys, your goal is to have successful apps out there and have people have success. And if you do that and you focus on that, of course, you'll make plenty of money because
That's the key.
they come.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, you're 100% right, man. And the way we view that is we're not short-sighted, right? We're not here to just pump out a bunch of fill in the blank, stamp apps out the door, right? Because they don't live.
right,
The App Store has plenty of dead apps. We're not in that business.
right.
And I think what we found out, and Joe can back me up on this, a little peek behind the curtain to our business model is, we actually say, foremost, we're a long-term agency.
Mm-hmm.
You're building an app, yes, but you're building a business, actually, is what you're doing. And we don't really separate those two, right? That is like the lens that we run everything through is, hey, is this like conducive to your current business model? Because it is sort of selfish on our part because those long-term visions, right? If we're planning for long-term, we're planning for our client success and they do have a successful app, well, we win also. Because if we're the guys that are helping you through those decisions, maybe saving you a ton of money by tempering that a little bit and saying, hey, maybe that's a version 2, maybe that's in a couple months, and as these things become successful, we then kind of transition a little bit away from being the guys that built everything to the guys that are advising, right? We can start to fill in a couple more roles. And it's been really interesting with you because you were, what we would call some of our late stage clients. You want to talk a little bit about like how we sort of transitioned from we just listen to you and help you with the business model of software into some other things that are more of like a supportive nature.
Sure. So, like I said, I mean, at this point, you guys you're maintaining the app, you're hosting the app, you're running testing on a regular basis to make sure everything's up to date. You guys, they go through, they find their checklist, you all send it to me that, hey, we found these things, this is what we fixed. And like, Joe said, it's a living, breathing thing. It's not something that, it's not a widget you can build and set on a shelf and just walk away and it'll just sit there. It's more like a plant, right? You can do that with a plant, but the plant's going to die eventually if you don't take care of it, right? You put water on it.
Yeah.
So, it's the same kind of thing. An app is more like a plant than any widget or whatever you want to build, right? And I think it's interesting too what you said about it's a business, right? And so, other people, I would say, people that come to you with an idea for an app, you got to realize that you're starting a business, right? I mean, if you're creating an app and you want it to generate money, you're starting a business. And I'm sure you guys, again, I've owned multiple businesses, so I kind of have that view of that, and I understand that it's a process. It doesn't happen right away. There's ups, there's downs, there's goods, there's bad, but you have to look at it from a business sense also. Does it make sense, right? And comes to financials, we've worked, like I said, financially it takes money to build an app and maintain an app. It does. So to be able to do that prudently, spend that money, and stretch that money as much as you can till you start generating some revenue. Revenue cures all, man. You're making money. It makes
certainly makes it easier. Yes.
So, again, focus on just get an idea, focus on it, get it out there in the market, generate some revenue, and then the sky's the limit, man. You can go, if it takes off and it's a really good idea, then, bring on the shiny objects.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we repeat often, when we're having those sort of tempering conversations, well, hey, let's really think about this is, two things. One, Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. That was a movie.
Not so with the app world.
Not a business model. Not a business strategy, right? A great movie. Loved it. May have shed a tear or two.
Yeah.
Not a business model. Definitely not. But the other thing that we say is, our sort of, I don't want to say it's our primary goal, but it's up there when considering launch of a piece of software. We are saying, hey, I see that you want to add all these things. They may be very viable. They may eventually turn into the cash cow you're looking for your whole app. However, it's always easier to pay for additions, maintenance, stronger marketing campaigns, whatever, once that starts generating revenue.
Absolutely.
So we try to sort of blend that, hey, let's launch this thing. It's got to be capable, right? It can't be too skinny to operate. It shouldn't be so massive that you may have users who use 30 or 40% of everything that you built and they never touch the other stuff. But either way, kind of focus on those core competencies that this is supposed to do. Yeah. And after you start, getting some usership and generating a little bit of money, two things happen. One, you're seeing where people are spending their money and their time on the app, which is data-driven decision-making at that point. We're not like gut feeling kind of deal. But the second thing is, man, it's really easy to do an update when you see those plus signs in your bank account, not the negatives, Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important. Like I said, we talked about, get it out there and get feedback, right?
Yep.
Because you could have a great idea, like you said, but it's a great idea to you, but the market might say, well, we really like this little part of it, but the rest of it's kind of right? And then you spend a bunch of money for something that, it's just not really working, right? So again, with the MVP, get that out there, get it working, and see where you go, and that's the other part of the business, right? You can have a great idea, but if you don't market your idea, you can build it, they're not coming unless you tell somebody it's here. Let me put it that way, right? I mean, you can build the greatest thing in the world and set it there, but unless you tell somebody you actually did it, what's the point, right? Nobody's going to come. So it's a hand in hand, right? It's a it's a
100%.
two-part thing, and it's built, and that's part of the business, right? Not a lot of businesses just start. You don't just say, hey, I'm going to start a business and then sit in your office and wait for the phone.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's not how it works. You got to let people know in the world what you're up to.
And if you find a business like that, Dave, you give me a call.
Yeah.
I'll put some money into that.
I will not. I'm going to sit here in my office. And
he's going to take it himself.
Right. Yeah, right, man. Dave, I appreciate your time, man. I know, in particularly today is a very busy day for you, so we appreciate you breaking off some time to chat with us a little bit, man. Again, it's been awesome working with you, and we're looking forward to that version 2.0 and having another conversation in a couple years about this.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I appreciate so much everything you guys have done. Couldn't ask for a better team to work with.
Thank you,
Like
sir.
I said, I've owned multiple businesses, so I've dealt with teams of people. And you guys are top notch for sure.
Thank you, sir.
Really grateful to hear that, Dave.
Good things about you.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, enjoy Italy.
Yeah.
Have a great time. You deserve it, man.
Yeah, buongiorno.
Enjoy.
All right.
Buon viaggio.